For many introverts, traditional conversations about power feel very aggressive and very misaligned, so we avoid it altogether. The problem is avoiding it often leads to invisibility or feeling like you're invisible, leads to burnout or stall growth, either in your business or in your career. Power doesn't have to be loud to be effective. And that's something that we're looking at in this episode of the Quiet Impact Podcast. I am your host, Stephanie Oden. This podcast is for leaders and entrepreneurs who want influence without pressure, who want visibility without performing, and then growth without burnout. I'm going to break down 7 laws of power that we as introverts commonly struggle with and show how to practice being in this space with clarity and with integrity. So let's jump into this episode, shall we? We shall. Welcome to the Quiet Impact Podcast, where we nurture the journey of introverts who desire to achieve greater levels of influence, income, and impact. The go-to podcast for introvert achievers just like you, seeking purpose-driven growth. I am your host, Stephanie Oden. We're not shy, we're not timid, we're not needing to be fixed. We're an introvert. That is our superpower. Introverted AFF. Absolutely fabulous and feisty. Today I'm talking about power. Not loud power, not manipulative power, not hustle-driven, pressure-based, ego-centered power, but quiet power. And actually, that's the name of my journal, Quiet Power. I want to take you into a conversation that so many introverts have privately, but rarely say out loud. So if you've heard of the 48 laws of power, and you're thinking like a lot of introvert leaders I work with, they've had one or two reactions. Either this feels very aggressive and misaligned, or there's something here, but I cannot risk losing myself to apply it. And this episode is just for that. Because power itself is neutral. The way the nervous system experiences power is usually not. So I'm going to walk through 7 of the laws that are real pain points for us. And more importantly than knowing it is how to practice this essence of what we learn here in a way that protects your peace, honors your values, and supports sustainable growth. If you haven't figured that out yet, you will hear me say that a lot, like growing and protecting our peace, growing that honors our values, growing that supports our growth as part of our ecosystem that we put in place. It's not about playing games. We don't perform. We don't do that. It is about clarity and it is about self-trust. The first one I want to share with you, court attention at all costs. Ugh. Doesn't it just make you cringe when I say that? Court attention at all costs. And typically for us, attention can feel unsafe. It feels exposing, it feels performative, especially when I throw in there words like court attention. It feels like an invitation to be misunderstood. And haven't we been misunderstood quite enough in our lifetime? Okay, so we're not asking for more of that. But here's the truth. The law isn't about attention, really. Let me shift this paradigm for you. Let me help you shift this paradigm. It's not about finding attention. It's about being findable. We don't need to court attention. And I talk about this in the Introvert Achievers Network. We do not need to court attention. We need to architect resonance. Ooh, that's a big word, Stephanie. What is that? What did that phrase mean? Architect resonance. It means build what works for us and vibrate in that space. You don't need to shout. You need to be clear. Clear about who you serve, your ideal customer. Clear about what problem you solve. Clear about where your voice lives. So that quiet power comes from consistency and not from being courting attention at all costs. Right? And it doesn't have to be loud. It does have to be consistent, and it does have to be intentional, and it does have to be clear. Law number 2. The law is always say less than necessary. Now, this one gives us a warm fuzzy because it sounds so introvert friendly until it's not. Because often introverts don't over talk to dominate. We don't over talk to dominate, but we do over explain to feel safe. Ooh. So we explain to be understood. We explain to be avoid conflict. We explain to preempt misunderstanding. Part of my mantra is I will no longer over explain to be understood. Power does not live in over justification. Silence isn't withholding. Silence is self trust. Knowing when you've said enough and you're not looking to say more as a way to be better understood, as a way to over explain, as a way to over justify. So, with our quiet authority, it speaks from decision and not discovery. Like, you do not need to walk people through your entire internal process. You don't. Most of the time, they don't care anyway. You can offer conclusions. You can offer stories from others who've had success. You can state what your boundaries are. You can let your systems and your results speak. And the more aligned you are with this, the less explaining you need. How do I know this? Because this is one of the areas that I had to work on, especially as an entrepreneur and as a leader, as an emerging leader. I had to know when enough was enough. Law number 3. Do not build fortresses. Isolation is dangerous. This law is also misunderstood by us. Solitude is not the problem because we do like our solitude. That's not the problem. The problem is isolation. Introverts regulate through solitude. But here's the thing. Growth requires selective connection. So when things feel overwhelming, many of us, we have done it. I have done it. You've done it if you admit it to yourself. What happens when we get overwhelmed? If we've not figured out how to create the space, if we don't understand our capacity, if we've not added in selective connection, we disappear. We stop sharing. We stop talking about the very business that's helped transform other lives. We stop talking about it. We stop asking. We stop being seen. And slowly, ever so slowly, invisibility replaces peace. And that goes back to we don't want to be invisible. We want to be clear and we want to be seen. We want to be findable. Quiet leaders we don't need crowds. We do need containers. We need containers. We need capacity. We like small rooms when it comes to making the connections. Now, here's a caveat though. Just because I like the small room doesn't mean I can't speak on stage because I can, I do, I have, I will. Doesn't mean that you can't speak on stages either. We like aligned mentors. The best thing you can do is get a mentor that you are aligned with, that gets you. And here's the thing, even though I work primarily with introverts, I've had mentors that weren't introverts, but they were in alignment. My sales coach talks a lot about authentic selling conversations. Why does that connect with me? Because that's a place where I can be authentic. Selling authentically, I align with that. The other thing we like is trusted systems. So we can don't have to think about it every time. So we like small rooms. We like being aligned with mentors. We like trusted ecosystems. And isolation can feel peaceful, but it cannot be used to limit our perspective or our opportunity or how we need to expand. Law number 4, enter every action with boldness. Now, whoa, 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 whoa. Whoa, back up, Nelly. Back, back, back. This is where we can get mislabeled as hesitant if we don't go into every action with boldness. But we aren't afraid to act. The problem is if we're not clear, we can be afraid to act without being clear. That's a problem for us. So let's tweak that boldness. It doesn't mean impulsive. Did you catch that? Boldness does not mean impulsive. It means clean commitment. I like that. Let me know in the comments if you like that. I like that. So quiet boldness can look like this. We decide moving calmly. Absolutely. Letting your structure and your ecosystem support the courage you need to move with clean commitment. You do not need emotional intensity to be powerful. You don't. You need decisiveness without drama. Introvert boldness is a quiet, intentional, consistent movement. Decisive without drama. Clean commitment. Law number 5. Make other people come to you. Now, this has been or can be confused with manipulation, but at the core, it's not. It's about positioning. We don't like chasing. We don't like convincing. And we don't want to have conversations that feel salesy. If you do, good for you, boo. Most of us, and truth be told, extroverts don't want that either. But we're really in tune to that. I don't want to chase. I don't want to convince. I don't want to have conversations that feel salesy. If any of those apply, I am not going to do it. And here's what I love about this and flipping it. So don't. Don't chase. Don't have conversations that are about convincing. Don't struggle with salesy. Stand for what is meaningful. Clarify your message, clarify your offer, clarify your standards. Know what resonates in here because that's what's going to come off as the authentic part of you. That's how that law is going to really draw people to you. Even if you even if they end up not being a fit for what you're offering, if you stand for something meaningful and you have that place of my message is clear, my offer is clear, they know where I stand. They know that when I bring them something, it is of a sincere, thought out offer for them to consider. And it's on them to decide whether or not it makes sense for them. People don't want to feel like they're pushed into something. They don't even need to be pulled. They need to recognize themselves in what you've built to see if it's a fit for them. Did you catch that? Can I say that again, please? Can I say that again? They don't need to be pulled. They need to recognize themselves in what you've built. That keeps it from being salesy, convincing, chasing, because that makes it about them. Now, law number 6, make your accomplishments seem effortless. This one triggers discomfort, okay? It triggers a lot of uncomfortabilities. Yeah, you know I make up words. You know that. Because introverts value authenticity, and effortless can seem kind of dishonest. I mean, in a way, it can feel kind of fake, but that's not what it means. It just means integrated. You're not required to narrate your struggle to be relatable. You're not. You're not obligated to expose everything in your whole life to be real. When it comes to powerful leaders that I've worked with, the thing that I know is powerful leaders share less laborious and more wisdom. So you can normalize the preparation without over dramatizing it. You can lead with results and reflect later. And you you don't owe people a play by play behind the scenes of your becoming either. And you can be real and relatable, and you can be vulnerable without showing every single thing. You want it to be integrated. That's the key with that law. And then law number 7. I think this is one that's most important for us as introverted leaders and business owners. We can often anchor our identity very tightly. And here's the law. The law is assume, big word, formlessness. Assume formlessness. Well, that's kind of uncomfortable. Why, Stephanie? Because part of who we are and what we've had to hold on to when the world was really noisy, many of us that have gone through self-awareness, we've gone through mentoring, we've gone through coaching, we've gone through leadership development, we've gone on this journey, and one thing we know is we hold tightly to who we are because that protects us. I am this. I do it that way. This is my role. But here's the thing about holding on to it so tightly is that rigidity creates fragility. With formlessness is not instability. It's actually sovereignty. Because when your identity is anchored internally, your expression can evolve without threatening your sense of self. That's what I mean. Because outwardly we're saying and we're holding on so tightly to, I am this, I do it this way, this is my role. But that causes some tension. But when we're anchored and we know who we are, values stay fixed, core values. I talk about that in my one of my courses. Forms stay flexible. I'm not saying change who you are because your values are fixed, your boundaries are fixed. This is how, and your clarity is there. This is how ecosystems outlast the burnout. It's because you're not holding so tightly to, I am this, and if it doesn't go this way, then it's fragile. I do it this way. If it doesn't go that way, fragile. This is my role. If it doesn't go that way, fragile. But if my values are fixed, I know who I am. I know who I serve. Your form can change when your foundation is solid. And your foundation being solid is different from formlessness. Here's what I want you to remember. Power does not require you to be louder. It does not require you to be harder. It does not require you to abandon your nervous system. Heaven forbid. No. Been there, done that, bought that ticket, went to that concert. It was ugly. I ain't doing it no more. But what quiet power is it's clarity without noise. It is restraint instead of performance. It is systems instead of a hustle. I talk about that a lot. That systems, that ecosystem. You do not need to dominate. You need to hold your ground. As you hold your ground, you will attract people to you. Because when you do, your presence will speak long before you say a word. That is quiet power. That's how you could take 7 of those 48 laws that most pertain to us and apply them and put them into your application card deck and use them to be better. So if this episode resonated with you, sit with it. Notice where you've been over explaining, over isolating, or over performing, and instead get in alignment. And if you're looking for a place to practice this way of leading, I've created the Introvert Achievers Network as a calm, intentional place for introvert leaders and business owners who are building income and impact without performing. Without performing. You don't have to figure it out alone. You can get information on the Introvert Achievers Network in the show notes, as well as the Quiet Impact Business Path, which is systems, tools, and mentoring. So those will be in the show notes. I look forward to seeing you in the next episode. Take care.